for.
So at the end of the talk, people who stay for the whole thing and ask good questions can take a photograph of that code to put into the corn.codes games.
Oh, excellent. So there'll be some good questions, hopefully. So hi, I'm Barry Suskind. I'm recently retired from a company that I worked for 24 years and have a cyber career that I've had for over 30 years. Started in building firewalls, securing enterprises, actually doing some hacking on my own, and then getting into more of the defensive side where protected the company from all kinds of incidents. So I've had viruses running around. I've had, basically, I wouldn't call them a breach, but definitely defacing websites and that kind of thing over my career. So I've seen quite a few things. Let's see, what's the middle button?
No, the middle button's a laser.
Oh, okay, there we go. This one. Yeah. So what do I know? So I've been doing tabletop exercises for probably almost 10 years. I started out just basically working with third-party incident response teams to build they would build the thing and I would just basically be there as a participant, and really didn't like the ones that they were doing. Some of them were unrealistic, they seemed to be not timely, it was kind of dry, and people weren't getting a lot out of it. So I decided I was going to build a scenario. I was going to tell them what I wanted to do rather than go the other way. So agenda, so we're going to talk about different types of tabletop exercises. We're going to talk about how to build them, give you some sample scenarios. We'll go through how the exercise runs. We'll go through what the after action goes, and we'll talk about pitfalls. So first, what is a tabletop exercise? It's a simulation of events that may happen and probably someday may happen at your enterprise, so you want to be prepared for them. So of the 4 people in the room, we have a 5th person in the room. Thank you. No bullshit here. How many people have participated in a tabletop exercise? How many people have actually tried to write them or run them? Excellent. So they're different from a disaster recovery drill, because disaster recovery drill or business continuity, you're actually shutting down your primary enterprise and moving things to an alternate location to validate that you would survive a natural disaster. But in this case, you really can't simulate somebody breaching your enterprise. You can do what's called a red-blue team exercise, where you hire somebody to come in and try and hack your enterprise, and I definitely think people should be doing that, but topic for another day. So the purpose they serve is to find the gaps in your enterprise. Where are the weaknesses? Weaknesses could be in your network, could be systems, could be applications. It could also be in how your operation works, how your teams work, how they work together, how your app teams have built things. So it's a chance to find these gaps in your enterprise and make improvements. So there's first tabletop exercise or technical. These are the ones I typically run, and the technical side is where you will start with the simple breach and what's going on, and this is where you're getting your gaps in your enterprise. So you'll say, hey, what's going on with this application? Something weird's going on. Or you'll find something in the network that looks strange. This exercise is your cybersecurity teams, because they're used to false positive, false positive, false positive, false positive. And sometimes they'll get one, ooh, I actually get to investigate this. Oh, no, some guy deployed a new app, this is normal. This will give them a chance to actually test to see how they behave under more of a pressure-related situation. What happens if you are breached? Can you deal with that? What do you do? It's a chance to get cyber and non-cyber talking. So the first thing they're going to need to talk to, they're going to need to talk to an app team, app owner, how did your application work? What's going on? Talk to operations. Is this something that's normal? Talk to the network team. So it gets everybody in one room. So now they're all communicating and cross-talking and learning. So this is where you learn. You learn and you put this into practice. And a lot of times the outcome is you didn't follow procedures, or you didn't have a procedure for this. You didn't know what to do in this case. So you need to write a process and a procedure for how to follow up on these steps, how to do these things. You also need to teach the information flow to contain it. If you have any kind of a breach or a virus in your shop, the last thing you want is this to be leaked out all over your enterprise, because the chance of this reaching a third-party outsider becomes greater as this goes along. And the last thing you want is some internal possible virus that really didn't mean anything to reach a third party, and then you have the press calling the CISO. I understand you have viruses running in your network. That's not where you want to be. So then we have the other half of this, which is called a business tabletop exercise. This is where you have all the executives in. You have the executives, you have your risk team, and you have your senior technology people. And you start the process with the technical team has already declared a breach. They already know bad things have happened. Now, you engage your executive staff in a difficult situation. So what do you do now? How do you handle this? They need to understand the incident response process. They need to understand the flow. They need to be prepared for when bad things happen, and they will, because the thing you're going to find is executives are going to go like, never going to happen here. We're never going to have a problem here. You guys are good enough. Don't worry. And I've been in exercises where executives made the wrong decision. I'll just shut down the application. It's fine. What are you going to tell the 1,000 users that use this application every day? The help desk will figure it out. You've got to deal with these things. Again, information flow and containment. If you don't let them know what's going on, or give them some kind of reason, oh, we're having a technical problem, or the network is snafu, or something to throw them off, just so that they understand that, okay, you'll need to do a workaround for now. They also need to know when to make difficult decisions. And that's where, okay, so now you have, yes?
You also found that they're very siloed in the work, that it's only their area of responsibility, and they don't because if I shut this app down, what is upstream and downstream?
Exactly. And the one tabletop that I ran that had executives, unfortunately, they scatter. They don't, because they're busy. And the guy that was remaining, he didn't run this application, but he made the call to just shut it off. Just shut it off, it's fine. And like, didn't even understand how many users were using this. The executives and the board messaging, that's a big key. So if you were at the CISO summit, you did an exercise there. And one of the things I know was highlighted, and I'll mention it, the CrowdStrike occurrence on July 19th, messaging. So George Kurtz came out and said, no, it's not a cyber attack, but yeah, we're working on fixing it. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. And people are left with just sour taste in their mouth, whereas, you know, Sean Henry came out, sorry, we screwed up. It's our problem. We make a good product, but we failed. We failed our customers. We have pain, but we can't feel. Your pain is much greater than ours. And we will work diligently forever to fix this problem, blah, blah, blah. So messaging again. So if you get a call from the press, you want to be prepared for that. For any business team that has a risk team or has legal, do you have a crisis management team on retainer? Because if you don't, you may make the wrong move. A friend of mine he's in public relations and used to do teaching and do crisis management training. And when Target was breached, back in, 2013, he said they totally screwed it up. He said they sent out the wrong message. But the thing of it is now, does anybody even remember the Target breach? Just another day. Sad. The last type is basically combined. These are very difficult to do. This is when you bring all your people together, technology people, business people, all in one room. They're going to be there for twice as long. So again, trying to get your executives in the room is going to be hard, but exposes all the teams to what's going on. So now maybe the executives will see what the cyber team actually does for a living, how they investigate, how they're going to raise the flag, what they're going to do. But challenges, like I said. One thing you may consider is you have the technical people in the room, you don't have executives until you reach a certain point. Then you call them in and then slowly dismiss the technical people. So now you shift to the business side. to try and make it so you're not having people sitting in a room for 3 or 4 hours. So pre-planning. The first thing you want to do is, what type of exercise do I want to run? Do I want to do a business one? Do I want to do a technical one? For several years, what we've done is we've actually come up with the same scenario and broken the two halves. So you do the technical side, and you get some information there, and that's what you use to help build the business side so that they can take it from there and go to the next step. Again, those take twice as long, but it also, you need to make sure that your incident response plans are up to date and accurate. So you go into a meeting, you might want to train. We did that. We would send out the incident response plan to everybody that would attend. We'd actually create training to have them answer questions so to see if they understood the training and understood how the incident response plan works. You want to make sure any key personnel that you'd call out, you're in a meeting, you want to call out key personnel. You don't want to call somebody out that no longer works at the company or that their contact information's changed. Now, what other technology have you added to the business since you last updated this document? If you add a whole bunch of technology, what you have in your plan could be obsolete. You may say, go check McAfee, and well, we haven't used McAfee in 5 years. So what do you do there? Scheduling these things is also hard. You want to schedule them months in advance. It takes a long time to prepare. You want to understand all the vacation schedules of people and also operational schedules. So if you find, oh yeah, everybody's going to be present, and you schedule this thing that week and find out there are 2 major applications that are going to go production that week, you're not going to get attendance. Those people are going to be too busy trying to test and make sure their application is going to be able to be deployed successfully. So now we talk about detailing the exercise. So what aspects do you want to hit and target? Do you want to target an operational team? Do you want to target an application? Do you want to target a system? How you're set up in the cloud? Some kind of infrastructure? You need to understand your enterprise and the people that work there. You want to keep current on industry-wide breaches and industry-wide incidents because it gives you ideas. And that's what I've used for probably 5 or 6 years for, well, this happened, so I think I can do this. We basically did the Maersk exercise where their Active Directory and all their servers were all hit, and it corrupted the boot sectors, and they had to rebuild everything. So we exercised one service. And in our case, one administrator who had domain admin rights actually had saved a copy of AD on a flash drive, and he kept it in his desk, which is not what you should be doing, but in this case, he would have saved the enterprise. So now you want to break these things into what are called injects. So it's a little drip, drip, drip bleed of what you're going to do, because you want to generate questions. You want to generate activity. So here's one that I did. So the first inject, you see, software on an application host detects, the security software says, hey, there's some unknown activity going on to some IP address. And it's going to pop an alert, or maybe not. Maybe they catch it, they don't. The security team is going to look at it. They're going to ask the application team. This generates the talking. Talk to the application team. How does your app work? Are you supposed to talk to this host? Look up the host. Where does it go? Check the firewalls. Did this actually go out or not? And it shouldn't have gone out. And that's a gap that a lot of enterprises have. They don't lock down their outbound internet. So after you get the conversation running, you come back with this. Well, now several applications are doing the same thing, but they're talking to multiple different IP addresses all over the internet. Now you've got a problem, because now you got a bunch of apps that are all behaving strangely and you don't know why. So the background. So I did some research. We were running Black Duck, and you look under security and you find, yeah, there's some minor things that need to be updated. There are a few apps that are critical, but they're working on it. Then you click on operational, and you find thousands of operational problems because they have not updated their software. So in this case, we attacked Apache Ant. was used, 100 applications were using it. And we found that about a handful, about 15, had not updated the version of Apache Ant since 2012. Well, unsupported software you don't necessarily get CVEs or reports on the software that they don't support anymore. They're not patching it, they're not looking at it. So these things could go undetected. It's a little bit of a stretch, I will admit that. But it gets people talking about, gee, maybe we should be looking at our open source software and keeping it up to date and expunging things that are no longer supported. Another sample. So, user contacts help desk. He's on a Mac. I can't open a presentation I'm working on. I don't know what's wrong. I'm on a MacBook. So what's the help desk going to do? They're going to engage the desktop support team to go visit the guy. They're going to look around, and they're going to, but they look on a computer and they find, some documents are all messed up. Again, people talking. They may never have contacted the security team at that point in time. They're investigating, maybe the guy's software is broken. Oh, well, let's reload Office on the computer, or maybe create a new profile, or any number of things. And while it's happening, all of a sudden you get multiple users contacting them. On PCs, they open up a Word document, it's all gibberish. A guy on a MacBook says, my development environment's gone. I don't know what happened. I can't find anything. And you go through the scenario. And you start marching along, and obviously they're going to contact the security team. The security team's going to find out, well, I find that there's something running on this computer that doesn't belong, and it looks like it's ransomware. So the backup of this was, we found that the Macs in our environment had no backup software. They install OneDrive on them, but they were not enabling OneDrive to automatically redirect the documents and desktop folder. Now, if you're careful in Office, it will store the stuff in OneDrive, but you can certainly store it in the local documents folder. And any software you put on there, any development environment, goes in your profile, not backed up. OneDrive. I asked the question of the administrators of our M365, so what do you do? Where are your backups? How do your backups work? Is there a file history? They said, oh yeah, there's file history. I said, what if that's wiped out? Well, that can't happen. At DEF CON, I asked 3 different security experts on that one, specifically that question. I said, can ransomware detect the fact that you have files that are in OneDrive and wipe all the versions? They said, most definitely, and they will likely do that. These guys had no answer, so I let it slide for 6 months, and that was our scenario. And basically, you need other backups. It was interesting that during this period, one of the guys on my team, they transitioned some of the accounts around, and what ended up happening was his OneNote, his entire OneNote catalog disappeared, gone. It is not like any other Word document or PowerPoint. There is no other version of it. If you look in there, all it is a symbolic link to something. I found out you can find the actual files, the .OneNote files. It's hard to find them. His stuff was gone. They opened up cases with Microsoft. They couldn't find the problem. And he wasn't happy. So along with this, you need to understand timelines. So sometimes your exercises will go like a day went by or 2 days went by, when no, this stuff happens faster. You need to spin this up faster. You don't want to skip steps. I had one that I didn't get to run the exercise that just came in, and the first inject was 3 people at the company get SMS text messages coming from the CEO. There were no links in them, just an SMS text. Hi, I need you to help me. The next inject was 3 applications had been completely breached and there was data on the internet. And it was like, not good. So let's talk about some of the ones that I've created. Like I said, I ran the one with Maersk. I ran the one with OneDrive. I've had a simple virus where it was just a simple virus on a computer that ran around because I wanted to see how my team would clean up viruses, how the support teams would work. There was really no real damage done, and to see how people react. I've done one where basically we had a secondary firewall that were on all the workstations. So if you wanted to get in production, you had to light this up. But I saw that, well, if your computer gets infected, you open up an SSH connection to your production host. If a piece of malware is sitting on there, just piggyback that connection. And that's what it did, and breached through the enterprise that way. So there's many different things you can do. We've done ransomware. One I did was with browsers. So we actually had a red team do it also. So, and it was an actual incident where somebody downloaded, he wanted an app, he wanted the ad blocker, so he downloaded one. This turned out to be an ad injector. And we found this ad injector's code in our production code. It wasn't doing anything bad, it was just trying to basically map out spyware and just tell people on the internet that you'd visited a site. So we did the same thing basically by having somebody download, said, getting a message from an outside party, we want to work with you, we want to have a video conference, we're using this new software. Put this ad in Chrome. It basically owned the guy's browser. So now they could just basically do anything they wanted on the guy's browser without him noticing it because it was running in the background. And we ran the same exercise. So we don't allow browser add-ins. Anybody allow browser add-ins in your enterprise? Just users can just add them? Yeah, so we block it all, and you have to get an allowance for it. It's a common takeaway when third party runs your enterprise tabletop, they'll constantly ding you for not activating your incident response plan, but they never prompt you, should you activate it now? Is this an incident? Did you talk to the CEO or the CISO? No, they just let you fall on your sword and write you up for it, thinking that, well, that's going to get them more money. I mentioned about frustrations when I was an only participant. That was when they skipped a huge step. Consider excluding key personnel. So one of the reasons why I was running the exercise is because I was that guy. People would come to me because I knew the enterprise. I'd been there so long, 20 years of experience there. So if I'm out of the loop, how do you guys react? Do you have anybody in operations that's the key guy that knows how all the stuff works? Tell them to go home. They aren't available for this exercise. You want to see how other people are doing it. Can they handle it? And just from reading the news this week, I already see about session hijacking that's come up as a big thing. Man in the middle is no longer available because it's basically all encrypted. But there's something called authentication in the middle, where you have a reverse proxy. You entice somebody, you need to log into your OneDrive, and here's the link, only it's not the link to your place, it's their link, and they're capturing all the traffic. So once they do the MFA, they capture the tokens that are now gold, because now they can get in. The same thing on a browser, and this is, again, browser add-ins, but browser add-in, it can see anything in the browser. Again, Microsoft 365. Do you have conditional access where do you allow people to log in from your home sites? You could do something right there. A guy's home machine is breached and all of his data is now on the internet. It's now in a dark website. You don't assume your cloud is protecting you, so you want to test that. You have any lack of MFA service accounts that aren't doing that? Syncing, the syncing accounts, there are ways of just basically grabbing all the credentials from those. Linux cups, that's been all over the news. It's a big vulnerability. It's the Unix printing service. They said it's an RCE, but I have a bugaboo with RCEs. Remote code execution to me requires a remote user inject code into the computer, not a user go download a program and run it. No, that's not remote code. That's local code. The biggest problem with this and trying to use this is that Linux systems do not have cups enabled by default. So you could have a two-step piece of malware. If you're not using cups, don't install it, because somebody could come along and turn it on, and then this thing would be activated and possible to infect the machine. And once it's infected, it propagates. Executive preparedness. I said, a user causes an infection that causes an email outage. So can your company sustain an email outage for a number of hours or a day? Can they sustain that? That may not be a breach. That may not be something that rises to that level. It's an interruption. You know, external party calls you up and says, I have your data, and I got it from a current employee. Maybe you need to check on this before raising flags. But it's a good scenario to test to see how they would behave and who they would talk to. And when speaking in your staff, you want to be careful. So you want to learn about your enterprise and find gaps. You don't want to ask leading questions that are going to give away your scenario. So you've got to be really dance around it a little bit so they don't really understand. The guys were very upset on the 365 one when I did the ransomware on that. Because I'd asked them 3 times about backups, and they wouldn't answer me. So I said, well, we're going to test this. And their answer was, we'll call Microsoft. No. No. So running a tabletop exercise. So whoever's facilitating it's going to have their introduction. They're going to say, hi, welcome to the tabletop. We're here to learn. So there's no pointing fingers. There's no bad vibes, no bad thoughts. We're all here to learn. Please go along with the exercise and do not naysay. Do not go, don't fight the scenario, accept it. And I had that once, and I called them out. They were just sitting there, and 2 people were snickering the whole time. And I said, you have no idea. You're an app person. You are not a security person. You have no idea what's capable of being hacked. I just called them out right in the meeting. You want to run the exercise, you run your injects. Like I said, it's a slow drip, drip, drip bleed. You want to give time for questions. You want to prompt people if they're not talking. You want to keep them from digressing and going off the subject, but you also want to prevent them from jumping the gun and perhaps usurping your next part of your inject. And I did that once where I said, we basically turned the page. Oh, we already did that. Next one. So you want to try to contain things, but you want to keep it moving along. And once you're done, you have a closeout. So you're completed the exercise. You went through the scenario. Everybody understands. You want feedback. You want to get feedback in the room. What went right? What went wrong? What did you like about the exercise? You want to collect all this information, because it's really valuable, because it's valuable to you, not only as to how you did the scenario, but also it could be a party to what to and how to improve. And then the next steps, which are after the tabletop. You want to run and create the action report. Your action report needs to detail the exercise, how the exercise ran, and basically you have all the details in a big deck that tells everything about the scenario, but what you present them are just a guy called the help desk. Now what? So you want to detail those, you want to highlight the gaps, you want to prioritize what was bad, but then you want to create an executive summary for the front of it that takes a positive spin. Mention all the things that went right, how well people did, and comment like that. You make it flowery and make it nice, because you don't want to give executives a report that's all bad. Once you're done and the CISO and or CEO or risk team has signed off on it, you want to assign corrective actions to the appropriate team as soon as possible. You want to get timelines set up. You want them to adhere to timelines. You want to have meetings to make sure they're following up. Because if they aren't following up and they aren't getting it done, what was the point? And eventually they'll just go, nah, nobody really cares. So they just don't fix it. So pitfalls of a tabletop exercise. Again, challenges using incident response vendors. They do not know your enterprise. They don't know your applications. They don't know how you're set up. Some of them they ask. So we ran when I used to work, we had CISA run, we've had them run 2. And they're very good. They're actually very good. They did ask the right questions. We helped them out with the scenario. They improved the scenario. But you want to make sure that you have that type of talk with them to make sure that you're going to get a plausible situation. Because even if they come in, if it's really bad, you're going to get that many more people that are going to basically say that this could never happen here and they aren't going to follow it. Scheduling, you need to make sure people are available. Lack of attendance. Sometimes people won't show up. You want to make sure they've got that commitment. The lack of engagement during the exercise. Again, the disbelievers, you may have people that are just too busy. It's a tough thing because they need their computers in the room to look things up, but they're also using Teams or whatever chat software on there, and they may be answering somebody else. They may not be paying attention to the exercise at all. There's also the back channel communications between people. So you have to be careful with that too. Difficulties, excuse me, like I said, in completing corrective actions. If you don't assign them and you don't follow up, then they don't get completed, and then people don't care. And generally, they're not going to care unless you push them to fix it. And some of these things are pretty important. So that's really, what it's all about. I've talked about the types of tabletop exercises, the primary elements, how to run the exercise, how to handle questions, because you want to be able to answer those things. That's why you have the whole deck in the background. You want to be able to handle those, not give away the scenario, but you want to let it lead them to be able to figure it out. You want to deal with the results, deal with the difficult situations. Running the exercise, you're going to have problems, and you're going to have things that they're going to ask, and you want to be able to answer that. And working with third parties to get a good tabletop. And a lot of people just have an incident response vendor that's on retainer, and they'll run the exercise. Make sure you fully vet them on how your enterprise works, where applications are, and discuss with them what you'd like to do rather than them telling you. It will work out a lot better. So questions? Anybody have a question? Yes.
So, in your experience, what's the length of time it takes to try and say, okay, we're going to do an exercise, and when it actually is done?
We've taken like 4 months to prepare for these things because, you want to plan out, and it takes several cycles. Because, again, you'll come up with a scenario, and you'll go to the CISO, and you go, I'd like to do this. And they'll go like, I don't want to do that. Come up with something else. Or he may give you something that might be totally implausible. But it's generally a 4-month cycle just to get through it all. Because you're planning the exercise, you're getting people included, you're updating your incident response plan, you're getting it out there and getting people to read it and train on it. So when they come, hopefully they're prepared. Unlikely, but at least you think so. Anybody else?
So my favorite thing is to learn from other people's bitter experiences, the negative know-how, something absolutely
Yep.
to avoid. Worst mistake that you make doing this.
On doing this, I said that one that they just basically, and they wrote us up for having not said, you didn't activate your incident response plan, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I said, wait a second. You guys left a huge gap in this. I said, I have no idea of what transpired between your first inject and your second inject, so I can't accept the fact that we didn't know what we were doing, because all of that stuff happened, it's just you never talked about it. I haven't had too many of them go south where, the worst thing that could happen, I think, is if you're going to attack an application, you better know how it works. You better know where the data is stored and how it's produced, because you're going to have the app team there. So if you say, well, this database, this column got corrupted and then the stuff went on the internet, well, that database, we don't use that anymore. Or that's not on the internet, or that index doesn't exist. You want to have your homework up front so you know what's going on, because that could be really embarrassing. Well, we'll have to go with it and see. You're just going to have that many people denying whatever happened.
Well, you raised the point earlier in your presentation. You actually talked about it at the CISO Summit too. So I'm going to tackle 2 ways about layering. First one is the storage of the incident. We'll try to do 3 or 4 here. And I'll give an example that's coming up right now, and actually we're going to run 3 in October, November, December. The first one is an SSO outage. Complete failure, but that's only the IT and security team. no executives are allowed except one level up. Then we have the second scenario lined up where we have critical cloud outages. So that, again, we have one level up, we'll do IT security and responsible apps team.
Yeah.
And then the third one will be a full ransomware audit, so that they've gone through a little thing, a mid-sized thing, and then the full thing. And with that, we also layer up, upstream, where we'll have we'll have it at the technical team level, then we'll have it at the director level, then we'll have it at the CISO, and then we'll include the board. But
Yeah.
each time we go up the pyramid, there's one stakeholder involved in it, so they can, in theory, proselytize it and be our champion for the next level. And then by the time we get up to that level, it's like we're now making revenue, process is down. There's no talk of systems or anything like that, just about process. Right or wrong?
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea to build on it. Before I left, somebody found online exercises that were like gamifying incidents for your cyber team to poke through things, just to be able to get them thinking about it, just being able to make some snap decisions. And just thought of it, now, I said, you wouldn't want to actually, so what was it, Crimson Tide, where he ran a drill, an emergency drill, while there was a fire. And he said, you don't get to choose that kind of thing. You wouldn't want to do that in your enterprise. If you're having an outage, you don't want to run a cybersecurity drill, but maybe you plan in your tabletop exercise, the first inject is you have an outage, a pure outage. Maybe a data center's power failed or something. And then the next inject is, because all your operations people are now running over here trying to figure out what went wrong with that. And now you've got a cyber event, and now people are bifurcated. How do you handle this? That'll be a topic for another day.
That's a really stress test. That's a stress test they tabled up.
I ran one many years ago where we did our first one, and it was a power outage at the data center. We were in the middle of the tabletop, and we had a real power outage. The generator would not start up.
That'll do it.
It was a hell of a learning lesson.
So how many people have used data centers in New Jersey? I mean, we're in the Midwest. Secaucus,
Yeah.
Equinix,
Yeah, NY4.
yeah, NY4. Huh. That's what we called NY4. That's the Equinix data center there. So the hurricane, what was the hurricane that came through there in New Jersey? Sandy. So what people don't realize is that the data centers, there's many of them in Secaucus in that area, were less than 24 hours away from going power out because the roads were flooded and they couldn't get fuel in to fill the gas tanks for the generators. Less than 24 hours. That would have taken out most of the financial sector.
Yeah, and the funny thing is most of the financial sector resisted going to their actual, supposedly tested backup plans
Yep.
because it would take days to do it. Everyone's like, well, why don't we just go to the backup plan? They're all like, oh, no. Like, okay.
Walter and I up in the Chicago area,
Yeah.
we've run a few plans where the companies are in downtown. What if the bridges were pulled out for whatever reason and the fuel costs?
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
They ramped up they broke it. They stopped access to the central business district for the NATO summit. And of course, our data center, one of the key ones, was right downtown. Well, thank you so much.
Yep. I hope
Anyone playing
folks-
the chord codes?
Hope
I think you've
folks
all learned it.
hope folks learned something.